Radio TV phono nut here, and what we have is a Packard Bell 5-tube AM radio chassis, probably from the late 40s. This is one that I got from a collector friend years ago. I think they took one look at it and decided they didn't want to fool with it, so I ended up with it. Well, it's been sitting around, and today I finally decided to pull it off the shelf and try to do something with it. And the first thing I noticed when I removed the back cover was the loop antenna was all mangled up and coming apart. This is what's left of it right here. And it had 3 tubes missing. I scrounged around and found some tubes to go in it, then plugged it in even with the old mangled up loop antenna, and we had the usual filter hum and bad filter capacitor hum, and I was able to get a couple of local stations, but not that great with the mangled up antenna. So I went through it and replaced all of the capacitors, the electrolytic filter capacitor as well as the paper capacitors. Scrounged around in my junk and found a loop antenna out of another radio that was junk. And it plays now, but we have a lot of oscillation going on. And that can be one of the most trickiest problems to fix with old radios like this. It could be anything from an open capacitor, an open bypass capacitor, or a missing bypass capacitor. It could even be a case where a capacitor is installed backwards, where the outside foil is not oriented properly. And in the case of this set, it could even be that this chassis is not happy with the loop antenna that I've selected for it. So we're going to try to find out what the cause is and correct it. Now, a lot of these little radios are specifically matched for the loop antenna that they came with from the factory, and in many cases they don't do well with a loop antenna off of something else. Sometimes it's not a problem, sometimes it is. That's why when I'm looking at old radios, if I see one that the back cover and the loop antenna is missing off of, I usually won't even bother with it unless it's dirt cheap. So let me fire it up and let you hear what it's doing.
Truth to be purified from your
So far that sounds good. But you hear the squealing whenever I move off of the station? You hear all that squealing as I tune?
Doing good.
Now, this can also be caused by a severe misalignment of the tuned circuits. So I've already gone through and aligned the IF transformers with the signal generator, and that got the reception better, but unfortunately it also made the oscillation worse. So let's try to find out what's going on here. I've also jumped out some capacitors and added some other capacitors like on the screen grid of the IF amplifier tube, and that still didn't help any.
Locate the dog's
okay, this helps.
The no ID tags being microchip made it possible to find the owner. This man truly...
I jumped a capacitor between B- circuit ground and chassis, and that stopped it. But here's the thing, we already have a capacitor. That big honking thing right there, 0.2 microfarad between B- and chassis. It's in parallel with a resistor, I believe a 220K. So is that capacitor open? Brand new capacitor open on us? Let's see. Alright, as you can hear when I jump the capacitor between B- and chassis, problem goes away. Well, that lulled me into a false sense of security, because after I held it on there a few seconds, it started squealing again. So it's not the cap between B- and chassis, and I even pulled the old one loose to test it, and it's fine. And I don't see anything wrong with the polarity or the condition of these other capacitors that I installed, so I'm starting to think this is just a case of a set that does not like the loop antenna I have selected for it. Well, I guess I won't be doing nothing else tonight. Transformer blew and the power went out, so that's the end of that, I suppose. Alright, the next day, power was off actually twice last night, and by the time it came back on and stayed on, it was too late to really do anything, so we're back out here today dealing with this. Alright, the reception seems to be pretty good. If I hold the antenna, I'm picking up the little country station that's hard to get. And the oscillation seems to go down, so I think that may be, our antenna may be the biggest issue here. Alright, when I bring my hand up close to the oscillator terminal on the tuning condenser, you can hear it subsides greatly. Okay, I switched out the 12SA7, and that helped some, but it's still there.
4 to 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get... Smart.
One bonkers over the pillow offer that a couple of weeks. Dreaming of the pillow that everybody, including the big guy, likes.
And I don't know why I'm so fussy over it. It's all I'm going to hear on AM around here is this garbage anyway, so I'm just getting fed up with it. About ready just to put it back together and find this thing a new home and be done with it. And see what it does. It tricks me as it's warming up. It sounds like it's going to be okay, and then when it comes up to full warm up, that's when it starts oscillating.
This Thursday, December 3rd, 7 p.m. at
Saturday, a 3-week ban on recreational activity. Bills next Monday night, December 7th. The Cardinals' week 15 game is scheduled Sunday, and the 49ers' 14 home game against the Washington.
It may just have to just stay this way. Alright, I slightly tweaked the IF transformer trimmers and improved it some more. I don't think it's helping any that this first IF transformer is basically unshielded under the chassis, but I'm not going to totally redesign this radio just to make it work perfect. It is what it is, and that's just going to have to be that's just the way it's going to have to be.
Those groups that are at the highest risk, we can ask
Your soul of praise,
Dr. Turner, and that's the game. The concern with me, and it's always been a concern.
Okay, I'm back down here, and about the only other thing I know to try is to replace this open IF transformer with one that's in a shielded can. See if that makes any difference. It certainly can't hurt anything, or it shouldn't. Well, this is really not the problem either. I thought it was, but when I tried to align it, it just threw it into oscillation, and besides, this won't even, with this big metal can on it, it won't even fit in here. So I'm going to put the original back, and that's just going to be the end of it. I don't know what else to do with this. We're just going to have to get it to work as best we can, and just going to have to accept the best results we could obtain. Okay, this is about as good as I can get it. I backed off the tremors on the IF transformer, particularly the first IF transformer, and this is about as good as it's going to get.
Movement in his rank, 4 degrees. Our Tuesday is going to be sunny, and we try to warm up, but we likely won't break freezing until around 10, and we'll hit a high of 53. I'm Storm Team 11 Chief Meteorologist Stephen Bowers for WMER 93.1 FM and 1390 AM. Good News Gospel Radio.
This weather update.
225-5225. That's 888-825.
Saturday, highs around 53, and lows 32 to 36. Right now, H3 35 degrees. It's 607. Seeing some patches of rain and also snow flurries.
That must be WSB.
Right now, when you drive, it is triple team traffic, and here is Trumbull. Super Joe out west says in the Temple Harrison County is seeing some snow showers.
Yeah, a little something from my early teenage years. Remember when that was on the radio and in just about every jukebox. Of course, I really didn't care for it that much, but still in all. Alright, here we are on WSM, and I have a .33 microfarad capacitor shunted across one of the B+ filters, and as you can tell, that's helping. Okay, I might have found the biggest part of the problem here, and it's power supply related. If we look here on the schematic, this uses 3 filters in the power supply. Coming off of the cathode of the rectifier, all we have connected there is this 50 microfarad cap and a 150 ohm resistor. Actually, it's 100 ohm on the schematic, or I guess it is. It's so smudgy. They have 150 in the set, but that's not what I'm concerned about. And then coming at the other end of that 150 ohm resistor, they have the feed going to the primary winding of the audio output transformer, and that's all. And then going through this other resistor, which is a 1K ohm resistor, at the end of that resistor, they had the B+ feed, which goes to the screen grid of the audio output tube. And this dropping resistor, or plate load resistor, would be a more correct term, to the 12SQ7. And then B+ through the IF transformers to provide voltage for the converter and IF stages. Now let me show you what someone's done here. It's obvious someone has worked on this set. Now coming off of the 150 ohm resistor, off of the cathode of the rectifier at the other end of that resistor, we have nothing connected, just a filter capacitor and the input to this 1K ohm resistor. And then at the other end of this 1K ohm resistor, they have the audio output transformer and the B+ leads to the converter and mixer stages and IF stages and all that good stuff, all coming off of the same rail there. So having it wired that way, that could be what's allowing some stray RF to get picked back up here at the audio output transformer and making its way back to these other stages. So let me wire this correctly and see if it works right. Well, I misspoke. After getting all this wiring out of the way, it seems that they indeed have the wire for the audio output transformer on the right B+ rail, and the screen grid and the voltage, and the voltage for the front end stages are where they're supposed to be too. So about all I know to do at this point is just put that 0.3 microfarad capacitor on this B plus rail that provides voltage to the IF and converter stages, and we're just going to have to leave it at that because I've done about all I know to do to this thing. Okay, there's our 0.33 microfarad capacitor from the B plus rail that feeds voltage to the IF and converter stages is to ground here. Now, the reason we have to go with a film cap is because electrolytic capacitors really don't make a very good bypass capacitor for RF. You really need a film capacitor for that. Alright, let's turn it back on and see if it's going to work or is it going to misbehave. Did this lead me to a false sense of security a while ago? And now I'm getting garbled audio, distorted audio, but when I check the control grid voltage on the audio output tube, when I touch my meter probe to that grid, it cleans it up a little bit. I'm about ready to throw this thing in the garbage.
Southern Miss.
Well, I took the capacitor out and the audio cleared up. I bring it back in circuit. And you hear what it does, all that motorboat and pitter-patter crap. Alright, I pulled the cap out. 1998. Sort of detuned everything to the point where it wouldn't go into oscillation, and that's just, I won't go into it as bad, and that's just where we're going to leave it.
Newcomers.
Promo code mark.
Melina. You know, you're starting to...
It does it worse towards the bottom end of the dial, but you know, I can't help it. It is what it is. I've tried everything I know to try, and I'm not going to agonize myself anymore over a plain Jane 5-tube radio. So it can go back together, and this is what it is.
Mistake. Listen, husband.
Alright, it's back together. That's all I'm doing to it. It needs a new plastic dial ends. I think you can get those. It also needs a new dial scale. I think you can get those from Radio Days. Or you might can take that one out and reinforce it and it'd be okay, but I'm done with this. Tired of fooling with it.
I recommend 15 as things go along.
I'm through with it. Well, decided to get back on the Packard Bell after I had a chance to sleep on it and cool off, and got pretty cold last night, down to about 26, I think, and no heat out here in the shop, so I'm not going to be out here long. Yeah, you know it's cold when the fluorescent light is not quite as bright as it normally is, so let's get this apart again, and I'm going to try a couple of different antennas on it and see if that makes any difference, because that's really the only thing I can come up with. Okay, here we are with another antenna. Let's see what happens.
Measures.
From this team at Carson.
Alright, there's my weak station. I'm just going to try to peek out the IF transformers and see if it breaks off into oscillation. Alright, get in the screw head. I'm really not in the mood to futz with this all day. Okay, let's try the antenna trimmer. That's good slip. That's exactly what we need to happen. Alright, that's better.
To one of the worst quarterbacks.
Out of Japan. Do you know more people committed suicide in Japan in 1 month? COVID all year in Japan?
I read this.
You tell me everything.
Okay, I turned off the fluorescent light.
For anybody else, we would say, okay, it's going to...
You keep it up, I can get used to it. No games, no games.
Okay, so it does seem that the antenna, the first antenna we used, was what was making this thing not happy. The only problem is this antenna I have on here now is one that I'd kind of like to keep for another radio. It actually came off of another radio that I plan on resurrecting, so we got to dig around and try to find another similar antenna to that one and put it on here. But right now this radio is performing, I'd say it's performing really well. It's picking up that little 1490 station about 35 miles away. Pretty good on just this loop.
This is 1490 AM, 93.7 FM, WHOC, Philadelphia, Mississippi.
Yeah, if this radio is going to be this sensitive, I may just have to hang on to it for a shop radio, because this is about the only daytime AMer that I can deal with. Okay, here's another loop off of a radio that I'm probably not going to fix. So let's see if it does any better on here, or about the same, or worse, or what's going to happen. Well, the reception doesn't seem to be as good, but we may have to realign the set with this particular loop, but let's see if we got any noise.
Right? So this...
So with this loop, we're picking up 670. Yeah, I think we're going to have to touch the alignment up. Okay, adjusting the antenna trimmer on the capacitor here. The tuning condenser brought 1490 back in. Yeah, here's one you don't hear on the radio much anymore. I'm going to have to pause and listen to this. Now that we optimized it for 1490, I'll bet 670 doesn't come in as well.
That's a real joke. Okay.
But that's really fine, because that's just another black gospel station that I'm not going to listen to anyway. But yeah, it does still come in. Maybe not quite as strong as it did before, but it's definitely there.
$22 will deliver a Christmas gift to a child, including Bible and a message, and this is what I love
that's not
so much
bad.
about fellowship. The gift will impact.
Okay, well, it seems that we're not out of the woods here yet. The radio was working great, and then I mounted the loop antenna to the back of the chassis where it would be when it's mounted for reinsertion into the cabinet, and it started squealing again. Hear that? And what I believe is taking place is the local oscillator in the radio is emitting an RF signal, which they do. All of them emit a small RF signal, and it's being picked up by the loop antenna and going round and round and round and round, and that's what's causing it to oscillate. Now, all three of these tubes in the front end, the oscillator mixer tube, the IF amplifier tube, and the detector and first audio tube all have metal shields, which is pin 1, and I've looked, and pin 1 on all the tubes is soldered to the chassis here, so, but still for some reason some RF is getting out of here and going back through the loop antenna and just going round and round and round, and that's what's causing our problem. Now, how are we going to solve it? I don't know. I certainly can't, I could mount some longer standoffs on the loop antenna, but then it would be sticking out the back of the cabinet, and that's not going to work.
Responders and people in healthcare workers in nursing homes.
Turn that off the station and see if I can make this more prominent.
We're getting it. You have patience. Really, I'm not a patient person. I'm not. And we get our news right away. We want our coffee right away. We want our meal right away. We want the vaccine right away. It doesn't work that way. Let's just have some patience, and we will get through it. Stick with us here at Fox Sports Radio. We'll give you the
Fauci spoke.
Now we're mounted in the standard position, and you hear all the oscillation going on.
Any reps?
Okay, moving the antenna a little bit further down on the backboard eliminates the problem. When we get it away from that oscillator tube, I'd need to really move it back in a little more because it's sticking out here on the side. Okay, maybe that'll do it. Maybe that's where I need to put it. Now, originally this antenna backboard had studs here, 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 and here, and then they just simply had wire wrapped around those studs, and I guess the way it was oriented, it wasn't quite close enough to receive interference from the oscillator tube. But with this loop antenna we have in there now, it is close enough to receive interference. We're going to have to move it over as far to this side of the board as we can get it, and then maybe it won't be close enough to receive interference from the local oscillator in the radio. Well, I moved it down permanently, and it's still doing this crap again. And see, it makes you think it's going to work right as it's warming up, and then when it fully warms up, it starts oscillating.
Warning, for our
And
Wednesday.
see, I move it away from the antenna, away from the back of the radio, and it works great.
In the whole place.
A lot of this, I think, is fluorescent light pickup.
9:10 a.m. and Gospel Connection. As we're in the middle of a Thanksgiving.
Achieve your goals.
7
tired of it. Shouldn't be this much difficulty to get some dinky little 5-tube radio to work right. And I'm just before snatching the tubes out of it and throwing the rest of it in the garbage. Alright, you hear now it's normal. I'm going to look around.
It's the holidays, full of magical moments.
I'm going to look around and I'm going to try to find a short ferrite bar antenna and mount it over here somewhere and neatly run the wires where they maybe won't be interfering with these two tubes here. And that's all I know to do to this. This is just one of those situations where the original antenna was mutilated. The set probably wasn't designed well in the first place. And people are just going to have to understand that some things, it's just only so far you can take them. And that this is one of those items right here. There's only so much I can do with what I've got to work with. Okay, I have connected a ferrite rod antenna, or bar antenna, out of a junk solid state chassis. This is not the ideal type of antenna for this set, but it's small enough that it will let me move it close to each tube and see which one gives me the most reaction, and maybe that'll kind of give me an idea about what stage is causing the problem here. So move it up next to the converter tube. And we get a little something. Move it up next to the IF amplifier tube. And you can see it gets a lot worse. Move it up next to the IF transformer. So it appears to be particularly bad around the second IF transformer. So we need to investigate that. Okay, what we're looking at on the oscilloscope is the screen grid of the IF amplifier tube. And it looks like we do have some RF there.
I hear that a lot of you have been calling.
It's really not good.
To see if
we are Praise 95.9 FM, 910 AM, Meridian's Gospel Connection.
For Jesus, it's Meridian's Gospel Connection. Praise 910 AM.
When I turn the volume up, it really gets carried away.
Rates are still low. Jamie makes the process simple, and most of you have the time right now to deal with this. Call 800.
Do you need a fence? Service and superior workmanship?
Administrative Johnson, Specialty Fencing and Roofs is a customer-focused company dedicated to helping you get the fence you need.
We sell and install all types of fence for commercial, residential, and agricultural applications.
We can help all our families
And offer full estimates within days of your call. Call me today at 601-604-0.
Interesting. Okay, now I'm clipped between the chassis and B-. Volume all the way down.
Life with Dignity, they are ready to take your call. 601-483-4134.
At Quality PC, we know that the most...
And you can see there's some modulation between those 2 points too.
30 discount line.
Now we're connected between the screen grid of the IF tube and the chassis.
Lifting spirits for generations.
And you can see on the scope that there's stuff there. Okay, by me showing a waveform between the chassis and B- and also between the screen grid of the IF amplifier tube in B- and the chassis, and seeing as how that waveform is controllable, the amplitude of that waveform is controllable by the setting of the volume control, then what that leads me to believe is, rather than RF getting back to into the front end of the radio, we somehow or another have audio modulation that's taking place after the volume control, making its way back to the front end, and that's the reason, or that could be the reason we're having the problems we're having. Because, I mean, let's face it, most radios have the loop antenna on the back here, close to converter and IF amplifier tubes, and it don't behave like this. So what the devil's going on with this set? It's getting a little late and getting a little cold out here, and that puts me in a more of a foul mood than I'm already in. So I think what I'm going to do is come out here tomorrow, and we're going to disable the audio output stage of this radio and connect my signal tracer to the control grid of where the audio output tube would normally be, and see what we have there, and then we'll do another waveform measurement and see if we've got audio floating around where it's not supposed to be. And see here again, if I back the antenna away from the tubes, it works great. Bring it up close, and it does this crap. And I've done some checks. I can't find any leakage between any audio path and the chassis, so I don't know. So just to recap, I've tried putting capacitors on all of the screen grids and the B+ lines from the screen grid and our B+ lines, all the same thing from there to ground, no change, nothing to really amount to anything. I've checked capacitor outside foil orientation, that's not it. I've tried several different loop antennas, that's not it. I can't find any components that are bad. I've tried lead dress, playing around with that. That's not the problem. I looked at all of the pin number 1s on these 3 front end tubes. All of those are grounded to the chassis like they should be. I can't find any kind of resistance leakage between any of these audio paths and ground. I might have already said that. Heck, I don't know. All I can tell you about this is I'm exasperated. The only thing that works is me backing this loop antenna away from the rear of the chassis. It works great then. Otherwise, it does not work. I'm fresh out of ideas. If anybody has any suggestions I might could try, I'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, I'm just going to yank the tubes and my caps out of this thing and throw the rest of it in the trash. You know, it would be nice if I had a junker set like this with a good loop antenna assembly I could just put on here and just see what it would do, but I don't, and I don't foresee getting one, and I'm certainly not going to bid on one on eBay and end up paying $50 or $100 for a radio that might end up doing the same thing as this one. So that's where I am with this. The only other thing I know to try is to get just a standard antenna coil like what you would see in the pre-loop antenna era, mount it somewhere over here on this corner of the chassis where it'll be away from these tubes, and then we'll just convert this set to use an external long wire antenna. That is the only thing I know to do at this point, other than putting some huge long standoffs on the back of the chassis and having the loop antenna sticking way out the back of the radio. But that's about all I've got on this. Like I said, if any of the experts who know more than I do would like to chime in and offer some suggestions, and I'd love to hear them. But if you don't have anything, then like I said, I may try to dig up an antenna coil and just convert this to a long wire antenna set, but other than that, I'm at the point of just pulling the speaker, the tubes, anything I might want off of this, and throwing the rest of it in file 13, because it's, quite frankly, not worth the aggravation to me. Oh yes, and I've even tried reversing the wires on the loop antenna to see if that would do anything. That doesn't help either, so I about pulled all the tricks I can find out of my trick bag over here. Okay, this may be the greatest bit of success that we've had since we started this. I found a new old stock ferrite rod antenna, and as you can see, I have it mounted to the top of the backboard here, and I moved it as far away from the oscillator and IF tubes as possible, and it seems to be doing better.
Children. Or even just a climate.
I don't think it's quite as sensitive as it was with the real loop antenna, but we'll put the signal generator on it and properly align it, but that may be just as good as it gets. Yeah, after my experience with Walmart, which I won't get into, that made me realize that this radio wasn't so bad after all, and yeah, Walmart's a place that it would be just fine with me if I never had to enter again, but they're literally the only grocery store on my end of town that's left, if you want to call them a grocery store, but it's the only place I can buy groceries, so I'm pretty much forced to go there. You know, growing up, we had 4, 5, or 6 grocery stores on this end of town, but that was before Walmart was a thing, and then they came along and ran everybody out of business. Just suffice it to say, what happened there yesterday was the closest I ever came to leaving a buggy full of groceries right there and telling them what they could do with it, and then just biting the bullet and going across town to the other grocery store and doing my business there, but I kept my cool. Alright, anyway, we're back during the daylight hours, and I'm still picking up my little country station and turning the fluorescent light off helps better. I really need to invest in a light that does not produce interference. Alright, 670 doesn't appear to be coming in as well, but that's really no big concern, because that's just a station I use as a benchmark to see how sensitive my radios are. Now, some of these universal loop stick antennas came with an adjustable coil, and the instructions were to use the trimmer on the condenser to peak out maximum reception at the high end of the dial, and then slide the coil over the ferrite rod to peak the reception out at the lower end of the dial, and then you cement the coil in place once you get good reception. But this is not an adjustable coil. It's permanently mounted, and it is what it is. Okay, I wrapped a couple of turns of wire around the antenna coil to provide coupling for an external antenna, and that helps it. You know, if it wasn't for the interference, this station would now be coming in almost as good as a local.
With Michael Jordan. Possible until Joe Biden got in the lead.
Christmas to remember, you're going to help deliver a gift, the gospel, from their incarcerated parent. $22 sponsors a child. $550.
Yeah, I still need to do a little cleaning and adjusting on that tuning condenser. It seems to be shorting out at the low end.
Page to make your donation. That's MikeOnline.com. Just click on
The election has shed light on the fact that the team.
LeBron led the league in assists.
Okay, I went ahead and replaced the AC cord. The original had some little hard spots in it. That's usually what happens when they lead up to cracking and breaking. And I also installed a clip back here to make it easier to connect an external antenna. Replaced the dial bulb that blew out while I was working on it, and it's working pretty good now. It's about 10 after 2 in the afternoon.
We're offering everyday 5%.
Don't know what that station is. That could be WABF out of Mobile.
The controversial co-author of this book, Corona Fox, award-winning. It's not your...
Grandma's bag. Drink it while you play.
Large portion of how people are spending it. But you don't know.
So, about joining the Nets. I don't know where he stories up. Now, maybe Kevin Durant focused on working out. Probably didn't have time to take a phone call from James Harden because I understand. You have no time to take.
Looks like we're getting an image of WMOX there. I don't know what that's about.
Do I believe Kevin Durant? No, I don't.
There's a little 670, but yeah, I think this radio is going to be more sensitive at the top end of the dial than at the lower end, which is fine.
About getting it, and are they pothole season? Each year, pothole damage. Nuts roasting on an open fire.
Alright, I think we're about ready to put this back together. Okay, this thing's still got a little something happening at the very bottom end of the dial. Your instant fart, but really not that much at the bottom end anyway, so I'm not really too concerned about it.
6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. on Fox Sports Radio.
Yeah, that's got to be WABF out of Mobile, coming in right below 1490, the little country station. So.
By making a pizza top with 254 different ones to stream.
Between 1450 and 1490, so that's got to be it. Yep, that's it, WABF. Okay, we're back together, and cosmetically I need to order a new dial from Radio Days to replace this torn up one. The pointer will probably be replaced with a metal one, and then I'll have to find a dial cover to go over this. And then this radio ought to be looking nice and ready to go.
10 chance for showers in the morning, diminishing to 20% in the afternoon, high 68. Partly cloudy.
WABF coming in pretty good at the moment.
5 to 10 knots, one for the west.
No, it's not.
We've got trouble. Something's just not right.
Okay, hope you enjoyed it. More to come later.